Are y'all seeing my screen?
Yep.
Yes, I can see
Yep.
your screen.
Okay, well, that's good. Now I don't get to have my, well, maybe I'll switch it over to here.
There we go.
I'm gonna try switching again.
Looked like we had about 30 people signed up.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, it's roughly around 30. I noticed a couple of duplicates because I think they invited other folks trying to gain roll call at the end. We'll see it in the chat.
Cool.
Well, somebody will take care of that, I hope, for me.
Yeah, I'm currently doing it as people pop on.
Oh,
So
good. And
I
the
will,
questions?
yes, all that will be captured.
Okay. Still working on this, folks. Okay, I think I'm happy now. I probably will not be able to see the chat. So it will be very helpful for you guys. Hi, Judy. And Alan. So great to see you. I'm glad you joined. We are working on taking care of you. Only 13 people took my quiz.
It definitely went out, Cameron.
I know. I got 13 people who did it.
I got a 90%, so.
Oh, good for you.
Do I get a prize?
You get to keep your job as chair of this committee.
I was waiting for that one.
Yes. So, all right. Is James on? Our most important person.
I sure hope James is on.
I guess it's Jim, not James.
Whose number
Well,
is 0?
you know what? We need to send him the new link. He may not have gotten the new link.
Yeah, the new link went out to everyone. We resent it
But
back out.
probably not James because he was not on the list.
Okay.
Oh,
Let me.
Yeah, he wasn't on the list. That's what it is. Are you're gonna do that? Thank you.
Who's doing, is someone doing that?
Sounds like Trey is
I'm doing
doing
it right now. One
Thank
second.
you. Kind of sad that it changed because I've texted him numerous times to tell him that that was the link that he got 2 days ago. Well,
Yeah. If you can do me a favor, go ahead and text him, let him know I'm sending him the current link. That way he knows it's coming from me. He'll be on the lookout.
do you have the text, Cameron? I don't have a text for him.
I don't. I just have email.
All I have is his email too.
Yeah, I've got his email, but if you're already doing that, I don't know if I've got his.
Might get some family Scotch coats and gloves and hats and scarves. Each kid
Was his phone number on any of his slides? I can't remember.
Not sure.
Yeah, I do not have his email or his phone number.
I'll just forward it to him. Hope he sees it. Okay, so I guess he got it. Oh, yeah, Zoom. Okay, so I think he's going to get it. I think he's going to get it.
Yeah, I sent it to him. So I just need to know if he received it.
All right. Well, I sent it also, so I bet you.
Oh, okay, awesome,
get it.
awesome.
I bet you he's going to get it. Well, welcome everybody. We're glad you're here.
There's James.
We've got him. All right, he's on. Yay.
He's
Well, we
on.
were definitely going to get started then. But good evening, everyone. I'm Cameron Trent, and I am the vice chair of the Department and Chapter Development Committee, of which Scott Russell is our chair. Well, we're so glad that you could be here tonight, and I'm grateful for everyone that took the time to do the quiz today. I think that's a good primer to get us ready for tonight's training. And while I will not be going over the answers, I hope that you will look for them in my presentation, in our presentation. The reason we're here tonight is because we believe that through education that our chapters and departments will attract membership and participation through education. And tonight we hope to give you some tools to help you get into the game and to help work at the state level and the department level and the federal level. For this year, for the ROA Academy, we're focusing on 3 things because, quite honestly, there are so many things that we could focus on. But based on the survey that you folks responded to last year, we chose these 3 items. Legislation, which is tonight, the yellow ribbon combined with improved communication, and a day of service in October of 2024. Just a few housekeeping things before we totally get started. We are recording tonight, and it will be available to you. We will upload it to the website. It'll be in the ROA Academy Toolkit area, along with our slide that we are using tonight. If you have questions, please put them in the chat to help us to stay within the 60-minute time frame. We hope that your questions will be answered during the presentation, and if not, we will get back with you. And here is our agenda. And I am going to be doing the first part, which is the World Wide Web tools. And as I told you before, I'm Cameron Trent, and I am living in South Carolina. And in South Carolina, I am the legislative director for our department. And I'm also the co-VP for the South Carolina Veterans Coalition, which I just took over this position, so I'm really looking forward to hearing what our guest speaker, Jim Bowerly, has to say tonight. So, a few things I'm going to show you about the World Wide Web. coming up right now. And you'll recognize some of these subjects from her quiz. And I don't want to dumb this down too much for you, but we do have a difference between our federal legislators and state legislators. Maybe you know that, but not everyone does. So the first tool that I want to share with you is how to find your federal legislators. Now, could you just go to your search engine and say, find your legislator? Certainly you could. And when you do that, you'll probably get a site that looks like this. And what I did was I put the ROA address in here so you could see what pulled up for the state legislators, and they only have one federal legislator. If I were to just put mine in, you can see that I have state legislators, which is, this is not correct, but this is for Missouri. For some reason, I'm signed up for Missouri. Is there anybody here from Missouri? So these are our state legislators and our federal legislators. So that's how you find those. The other opportunity would be through the House or the Senate. Move this ribbon out of the way. Senate.gov. But it's real easy if you just go here, because they're hyperlinked for your state legislator. And you can see, you just click on the hyperlink and you can find out all about them. You can find out what committees they're on. It's a great tool. So the state legislators, you can do it the same way. You can do to find them. But I really want to share with you how you can find your individual state. When it says mystate.gov, it's in quotes because every state is different. The way that South Carolina does it is how it's down here below. So you're going to have to look around and figure out how your state does it. And I really have not looked at anyone else's, but I really think that the South Carolina one is very well done. It shows you a lot of information. I encourage you to go out and look for your own and see how they're found, but ours is just set up so great. You know, we can see this, the Senate and the House. They've got a meeting schedule, and they even at times allow you to watch a live broadcast. So it's all right here, but one of the quick things that I really like to do is a quick search. Coming up. So under legislation, if I wanted to look for something that dealt with veterans, it won't let me. I can hit veterans, and I can see all of the bills that have been introduced that deal with veterans. It gives us an opportunity to look and see if there's something that we're excited about at the state level. So this is your however your state works it, this is how it will go. The last item that I have for you is Legiscan. Tons of information here. This is one of the questions that was on the quiz. And it is free if you only do one state. If you want to see multiple states, there is a fee involved. But it allows you to see what all is going on in your state. And you can do the text, full text search here also when you put veteran in and search that way also. And it allows me also to ask for notifications whenever anything is coming up on this. And I'm really excited about this bill because if you go down here into the actions, on the 24th of January, all these other people signed on to be a part of this bill, which gets me excited. And you can see which committee is covering it, which I forgot to mention back here. If you want to see what committee your legislators are on, you can also find them here and you can see which committees they're on. So you can see he's on the banking and insurance, and he's also on the Family and Veterans Services Committee. And so you think maybe he might be helpful if you need to sponsor a bill. So that's Legiscan and the World Wide Web tools to help you get started there. I encourage you to get in and get dirty with it and enjoy playing around in there. So next we have Brigadier General retired James Bowerly from Indiana, going to talk to us about advocating at the state level. We welcome you tonight, sir.
Good evening, everyone.
As our subject matter expert on state coalitions, I'm excited to learn more and more about this. Jim is the VP and legislative chair for his coalition, Military and Veterans Coalition in Indiana. And he also works with many other organizations that help veterans, reservists, retirees, survivors, and their families. Again, welcome to the floor,
Thank you.
Jim Bowerly.
Good evening. I'm going to jump right in. If you're advocating at the state level, my recommendation to you is to seek other groups and form a coalition. And that's what we have done in Indiana. And the list of organizations who are members of our coalition can be found on our website. But this is some examples in your neck of the woods of groups that you might seek out to join you. Next slide. So how do you organize this mob of organizations or people that are from this or other interested parties? I suggest that what we have in Indiana is we developed a set of bylaws, rules by which we want to operate on that. My second point is you always want to have regularly scheduled meetings so that everybody can plan ahead and be there. Again, like this meeting in Zoom or in person is an excellent, highly recommended way. Publish an agenda before and send it out ahead of time. Our president does that in our organization, and he sends it out usually the Tuesday before the Friday when we meet. We always meet on the first Friday of the month from 9 to 11:30, unless that Friday is a holiday or ties with a holiday for a 3-day weekend, then we'll move it back a week. But your bylaws can cover that and how you do it. After the meeting, we kind of summarize what occurred in the meeting and send that out to all those who attended the meeting, as well as all other stakeholders and members of our coalition. For Indiana, you're in this coalition that I belong to, you don't have to physically come every time or even Zoom in every time. You can come and go as you please and participate. Our website gives you some rules that we've established. And for us, we don't charge any money to belong. If we need money, we just pass the hat. And in our case, we have two
Hey, Ed,
things.
Dale Anderson, on the Zoom session tonight, and I did.
Dale, you're on, you went off mute. We got you back on mute. I'm going to continue. I presume Dale's on a phone call with someone else. But we don't charge dues. We need money. We pass the hat. In Indiana, we pass the hat for two purposes each year. One is to pay for our website, and two is to pay for a flyer that we put together and have printed up, about 300 of those, and we pass those out at our state capitol and at any organizations or with anybody that we see to support our coalition and our activities. We use it also to seek more. You can see our website there, and if after the call, I would encourage you to go out to our website and just to see it. You can organize your website any way you want. This happens to be the way we did it. We have one member organization from the Air Force Association that's part of our coalition who kind of maintains it for us, but not tough to maintain. Next slide, please. So that's how to organize for your legislation. So how do you advocate? So the first step in advocating is building your agenda item. And you do that in a coalition meeting that you would have with others, or if you choose not to take that yourself, what do you want to accomplish? Look at what exists in the state code in your state. And Cameron gave you a great tutorial to begin with to get to your state government code. And somewhere in your state government website, you'll be able to find out what the code is for your state. The second thing that you want to do is when you find the code, and in most government state agencies like that, you can do a word search on your state code. Once you get that, the code will be numbered. You want to copy that number down, and you may even want to copy the text. I always do. I'll cut and paste from the website to a Word document that then I can have and refer to repeatedly. The next step would be to develop a brief title of what you want to accomplish. A great example of one we've been working on for a number of years is we want to exempt all military income from Indiana state income taxes. So we find out, where exemptions to income taxes exist, use that as the code base, and then we'll develop a brief title. I just gave you the brief title. Then we'll have a scope document that gives, if you will, the scope of what we're trying to change. Anybody on active duty, reserve duty, or National Guard, anybody receiving a income of any type, any money from the Department of Defense would be the people who would be exempt, because in Indiana, you pay income taxes on that income. There are other states, I believe there's 39 of them now, because Indiana is one of them, that do not tax military income in some way, shape, or form. So you can do a web search to find out more information about this topic. Military.com is a good reference in this particular case, but you can use that information as part of your rationale. Next slide, please. So that's your first item. The second item that you want to do is now you want to talk about this after you've developed the item at your next, or at after your first meeting, back to your group, your coalition, to make sure that they understand it and that they buy into it. We have a rule that we apply that if if everybody agrees, that's okay. Not everybody has to agree. But you take the majority rule, And if there is a minority entity that disagrees with you, and I gave you another specific example of how that occurred, we've been advocating to have a reserve education program for college. We have an Indiana National Guard. Most states have a National Guard scholarship program for people who join the National Guard in their state. But we do not have a program like that to join a reserve, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard reserve in any state, I believe. So we've been advocating for that. Well, the National Guard Association of Indiana opposes that. Kind of obvious. They want that competitive advantage in recruiting. So if they officially notify us that they oppose it, but still want to be a coalition member, that's fine. Whenever we talk to a legislator about that, we're going to tell them that the National Guard Association opposes this officially. So they're as part of our coalition, they're against this bill for that reason. But we make that public. We don't keep anything hidden along in regards to those. Then you move to your third step. Now you want to find out somebody that will author this bill. Some states may call it sponsor. In Indiana, we use the term author because this is the first time this bill for this General Assembly session will be written. So we call that authoring. So you look at your research, and again, Cameron gave us some great insight onto finding legislators who are on committees or your legislator to provide that information. So you do your research and you pick from your website that legislator. We always try to get a legislator from both the Democrats and the Republicans. We also try to get a majority leaders in a committee to do that, to author our bills, because they usually carry a little more weight in that committee. The next page, please, next screen. So our next step then would be, now that we've got our targets, let's contact that target. We usually do it by email, and we also copy in the email their legislative assistant on that, and we keep a reference copy for ourselves. Reason for this is that oftentimes legislators are part-time people. They are in Indiana, so they don't always check their email, but their legislative assistants are full-time employees of the state in which you live, and they work for that legislator as well as being a state employee. So that it helps that way. Those LAs, legislative assistants, know what's going on, and that you can also find them in those same websites that Cameron told us about. So for example, sc.gov will get you to that website, or in.gov is what we use here. And then you just kind of have to maneuver. But by going to that and getting to that legislator, you'll find out what their phone number is, what their email is, and what their legislative assistant's phone number and email is. Then you can copy them. So we want to ask the question that on behalf of the state military, the veterans, and their families, we'd like you to author our bill. And those are, in my case in Indiana, those are the constituents, if you will, that we're advocating for. People currently serving, people who have served, and their families. Then at the end of your email, you want to offer to meet with that person in person or via a Zoom call or just a regular phone call. When I send out an email on this, I also will indicate that I will be happy to meet with you in your congressional district or your Senate district or your district. So I live in Carmel, Indiana, which is a northern town just north of Indianapolis. I live in Hamilton County. I may be going up to Gary or South Bend to meet with a legislator in their home district because that's where they live, and they want to be able to meet during the week or at lunchtime during the week, because again, they're part-time legislators. Next slide, please. Now, if you haven't heard back from the legislator via email or a phone call or their legislative assistant, give them a couple weeks and then do a follow-up. I always follow up with an email asking for an update, and I also call the legislative assistant and say, I sent you an email 2 weeks ago on January the 18th. It's been, in this case, the 5th, and I haven't heard back from you on my request. Did the representative Jones get my request? Is he going to author my bill? Would he like a meeting? Or he hasn't seen it, or he's on vacation. Give me an update, legislative assistant. So that would be the thing that you're following. You continue to do that until you get a definite answer. Yes, he's going to author the bill, or no, he's not. If he says yes, or she, then we want to go to the 6th step, is that's great. Ask for a preliminary draft of the bill. Now, most states, not all, as I haven't checked on all, but most states will have a legislative support entity that actually writes the bill for the state code in their state. In Indiana, we call it the Legislative Support Agency, LSA for short. A state senator or a state representative will take the idea that I have written out, we talked about in the early steps, and they'll just forward that to LSA and ask them to draft the bill up. And they'll draft the bill called the preliminary draft and send it back to the legislator and ask that legislator if this is what he really wanted. We asked the legislator to send it to us, me, so that it's what I really want, because legislators aren't military knowledgeable in most cases, and the legislative support services people, LSA in this case, none of them are also in that. So any nuances and acronyms or inclusion and exclusion, I want to review that in the preliminary draft. So we're ready to move on to the next step. Next page, please. So number 7 is the bill process itself. So once the preliminary draft is done, and I send a note back, an email back, or make a phone call, or both, back to that legislative assistant. I've looked at the bill. It looks great. Thank you for it. It's now the legislator's job to file that bill. And so that's the next step, is to file the bill. When they file the bill, depending on how your state legislative body operates, they will get a bill number, and that bill will get assigned to a committee. A great example is the one I've given you about military income. That bill got a bill number 1, 2, 3, 4. It was assigned to Ways and Means because it dealt with money. In Indiana, in the House, Ways and Means does it, and in the Senate, the committee's called Appropriations. So now I know what the bill number is, and I can get all my fellow advocates from all these different groups that we formed a coalition and get the word out to them with the bill number and the language in the bill, and they can start making phone calls and advocating on that. I can see if and when the bill's scheduled and for a hearing, and who the chairman of that committee is that it got assigned to. Next slide. So this is called whipping the bill. And whipping here is simply a matter of you, the advocacy group, start making phone calls and talking to everybody you can and getting the bill supported so that it gets scheduled by the chairman of the committee, number 1, and number 2, that your constituents can know when the bill is going to be heard, and that so they can then communicate with their friends and neighbors and contact other members of the House of Representatives or of the Senate to support this bill. We'll go to number 9 now. Next page. So the bill's now scheduled for a hearing on a particular date, particular time. So you want to show up and testify about this bill. If you remember way back when, we built a set of rationale for this bill that we have now. You can use your rationale to talk about why this bill is important to you, what the value of this bill is. So you want to show up at the date and time that the committee's meeting. You want to then testify by identifying who you are, what organization you represent. You want to thank the committee chairman for hearing this bill. You want to thank the person who authored the bill. And then you want to say, our coalition, ROA, we strongly support this bill and ask you members of this committee to support this bill and to let your other members of the House of Representatives or of the Senate support this bill. And the reason why we want your support is because this bill is good for Hoosiers in Indiana. Why is it good for Hoosiers in Indiana? Because we give more income to our reservists and guardsmen in the state and our active duty people, and they don't leave the state. They are married, they have children, and that additional small amount of money that they save in income tax benefits the state because they're going to spend that money at a grocery store or going out on an evening or buying something that we do tax. And so that revenue will come back because I'm spending the extra money I have on something along those lines. And I'm not apt, especially if I'm an active duty person, and I'm not even living in Indiana at the time, even though I was a citizen from Indiana when I joined the military. I live in Texas now, or I'm in Germany or Korea. I get no benefit from my tax dollars, but I still have to pay state taxes. This way, I avoid that. So I don't have to change my state residency to Tennessee or Texas or Florida, where I don't pay income taxes. I can stay that. Every 10 years, we have a point in time when we do a census, and I get counted as a member of the Indiana population, which then brings lots and lots of federal dollars from the Fed to Indiana based upon the population of the state. So great rationale for that particular one. Next slide, please. So then it passes out of committee. It'll go through the full House. It'll pass out of the House and then moves to the other chamber. In this case, it goes to the Senate. It'll be assigned to a committee in the Senate. And now you have to do step 8 and 9 again. You have to find out when the bill's scheduled, when the committee is, and start whipping the bill and show up and testify, hoping that the people in this case in the Senate, and my example of the bill in the Senate Appropriations, approve this and support it, and then it gets passes the Senate, and then there's a report made in the Senate back to the House. The House then submits a report along with the legislation to the governor, who signs it, and it becomes a law, and then it has an implementation date. So that is the crux of how you advocate in a state to get a state law passed. And I've given you a great example. You can find our bylaws on the website, as you see in the resources. I've provided Cameron ROA kind of a detailed document going step by step on these processes. And I am available via the website. You can get my name and phone number and an email address to email or call me direct. Feel free to do so as you're ramping up, or if you have questions about a particular type or piece of legislation. Maybe we've already done it in Indiana. In the last 10 years, we've had 87 bills passed in Indiana, and we've had 38 resolutions passed in Indiana. So we've got quite a successful program here, and have done a lot of things to improve the life of those serving those who have served and their families. Not to say that there's not a lot more to do, because there is, and we're right in the middle of that season right now. So that's my presentation. I'm going to
Thank
take
you so much, Jim. We really
Yep.
appreciate this. And all of his resources will be available on the toolkit, in the toolkit that we discussed. So now that was about the state. And now let's talk about advocating for the federal portion. And tonight we have Matthew Schwartzman, our Director, Legislation and Military Policy. He's been in this position since July 1st, 2022. Yay! Going on 2 years. Good job. And Matt is responsible for the management and the execution of ROA's government relations program and public policy portfolio. He brings a wealth of experience to this organization, and we're happy to have you here tonight, Matt, to share what our legislative agenda is at the federal level. Matt?
Hey, thank you, Cameron. And first, before I get into my presentation, let me say thank you to the Department and Chapter Development Committee for inviting me to brief tonight. I'm really excited to be here. Jim, that was an amazing presentation. Thank you for diving deep into a lot of the hows on advocacy, especially at the state level. And as Cameron said in her very generous introduction of me, my primary responsibility, what pays my rent, so to speak, is being the manager for our government affairs program. And the way that I look at government affairs is there are 3 levels that I am responsible for managing. The first is my own operations as your chief lobbyist, your chief advocate here in Washington, D.C. The second is with grassroots support, and I'm going to talk about what this means in just a little bit. And then the third is grass tops. And when we go through the ROA legislative advocacy tab on the website, which will be later in the presentation, I'll really get into the nitty-gritty on the grass tops and the grass roots piece of this. The first slide that I have in this PowerPoint is the language of the 10th Amendment of the Bill of Rights. And the reason that I have that on the screen is because it is one of the 2 federal provisions in the Constitution of the Bill of Rights that we look at when setting jurisdiction. And in advocacy, jurisdiction, both at the macro and the micro level, is very, very important. And generally what we see is all legislation starts with either a solution to a problem that's being experienced or an idea that comes from creative juices flowing. And so once you have that idea, once you've identified that solution, one of the first questions you want to ask yourself is, well, where do I start? And that's a very important question, because you want to make sure that you are investing your time in the right places. And so at the macro level, the question you'll have to ask yourself is this going to be an initiative that's exercised at the local level of government, the state level of government, or the federal level of government? At the micro level, those questions are going to look something along the lines of, what's the committee this bill would be referred to? Who has the appropriate background to be a good champion for this measure? And so as you go through this process, you'll see it's a really long and windy road. But ultimately, you'll always want to start with jurisdiction. Now, that's the state. That's the state provision there. That's that state jurisdiction. What's the federal? That's going to be the supremacy clause of the Constitution. And so the supremacy clause essentially states that the Constitution and all federal laws are superior to that of the state constitutions and state laws. But as you all likely know, the Reserve and National Guard as organizations are actually uniquely positioned in this. And there's a lot of cross-sectionality that exists between federal and state law. And so again, I can't help but emphasize, it's important to properly set your jurisdiction. Now, more times than not, there's going to be a right and wrong answer for that. But this is also an opportunity for you as an advocate to exercise a little bit of creativity and shape the reality that you want to see. And so next slide, please. Here's a quote that comes from Martin Sheen, Charlie Sheen's father, when he was playing Jed Bartlett on the show The West Wing. I don't know if we have any West Wing fans in here, but this is a quote that he gave as a response to a question in a presidential debate with the character Governor Ritchie. He says, there are times when we're 50 states, there are times we're one country and have national needs. The way I know that is that Florida didn't fight Germany in World War II or establish civil rights. But as you all know, particularly for the National Guard as an organization within the reserve components, sometimes that line is blurred. And so we really have to be intentional with the way in which we work through setting our jurisdiction. Now, the reason that the theme for my presentation is putting the federal and federalism, and Cameron touched on this in her introduction, is that the primary purview of my operations is at the federal level. But make no mistake about it, ROA's advocacy at ROA National is not just limited to those national issues, because it may be the case that the jurisdiction is properly set at the state level. One example that I'll provide of that is our advocacy efforts to provide for licensure portability across state lines for mental health providers. One of the reasons for that is because the Defense State Liaison Office has already made tremendous progress in this area on that. And so rather than take that out of the hands of the states, because that isn't specifically mentioned in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, we choose to support DSLO in that effort. And there are going to be more examples of that, as you've likely seen over the years. But next slide, please. So this slide just once again to touch a little bit more on some of those examples. I talked about the National Guard in particular piece of it, the Minuteman statue there. I know Sam Wright is on this academy tonight. Thank you, Sam, for joining us. And he'll be able to speak to so many of you, I'm confident, offline about what Texas tried to do by claiming sovereign immunity to undermine the federal law that is USERRA. I put a picture of myself and Maryland Governor Wes Moore on the screen because the state of Maryland actually passed a bill. It was SB 544, the Healthcare for Heroes Act, which actually worked parallel to ROA's #1 federal legislative priority, the Healthcare for Our Troops Act. And so state laws and state actions taken at state legislatures will always inevitably impact our federal campaigns as well. And so that's something, again, we just want to be conscientious and mindful of as we each move through our advocacy process. And so what I encourage all advocates to do at the state level when going through the process of seeking to employ and execute an advocacy campaign, please don't hesitate to contact me. Let's talk about it. Let's make sure we're on the right path. And let's also make sure that we're not working at cross purposes, because again, there is that cross sectionality. Next slide, please. So how a bill becomes a law. First, let me just say, I'm not one to believe in coincidences, but let me set the record straight. That cartoon from Mr. Bill, the one that has red hair, maybe you've seen the How a Bill Becomes a Law video. I promise you that cartoon was not molded after me, or at least I don't think so. I can't confirm nor deny, but that's just my gut feeling there. But my background actually started out in the state legislature. I started out in the New Jersey General Assembly, moved my way up to the Maryland General Assembly, and now I'm in the federal level. And so what I could tell you is that when we have a conversation about what the process looks like and all those little intricacies in the House, it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same. One of the differences that we see, though, at the federal level is because there's such a larger influx of bills that are being dropped, and because of the fact that there are so many more members that have to reconcile differences, the way to get real progress through the process is going to be through omnibus and minibus bills. So omnibus and minibus are essentially combined legislative package, which a lot of standalone measures. This essentially gives lawmakers on the Hill a little bit more bargaining power in order to advance their respective legislative agendas, in order to represent their parties and their constituencies and the nation as well. But it really starts, even outside of the policy, even outside of the process, it starts with the people. Something that I noticed in Jim's presentation was he used two words a lot: thank you. Make sure whenever humanly possible, you're always thanking lawmakers and staff for all of their work and all of their service to the nation. Make them feel very, very important. Now, it's within human nature that everyone has an ego. And what I would say is that for those who are professionals on Washington, D.C., egos perhaps there are larger than anywhere else. And so you always want to make sure that as you go through your professional process, you're maintaining a positive working relationship. And the way to do that is by extending gratitude and appreciation whenever you possibly can. Because the name of the game is relationships. And if you invest most of your time in cultivating and growing positive relationships, the process will work out, and that will in turn become policy. And so I've put a screen share and a couple of links. One's to the Mr. Bill video, and then the others are to the legislative process that's on congress.gov. It's a great resource. I encourage everyone to view it at your convenience. But again, the major difference between state and federal advocacy, and this is especially true in the national defense and the veteran space, is that bills are going to be much larger in size. Now, that's going to provide more opportunities on one hand, but if cost becomes a concern, that could also provide less opportunities. Next slide, please. And so it's always important, whether you're working on an issue alone and trying to cultivate a relationship with a congressional member of staff, or whether or not you're trying to build a coalition of support, which is what Jim was speaking about, what I'll speak a little bit more about in detail in a little bit, is that you're singing from the same sheet of music. Now, I always say that a great law is similar to great music. Both deliver a message and both compel an action. Now, for music, that action is going to be dancing. But when it comes to the law, that action may be something as simple as walking on the crosswalk. And so laws are a reflection of values, whether it be at the individual level or the societal level, but they also seek to compel an action that is universally enforceable to the furthest extent possible. And so when you're going through this process of trying to build and cultivate those relationships, you always want to make sure you're singing from the same sheet of music to the furthest extent possible. I put the bullet point on there: establish a connection based on a common interest. When I go into an office on the Hill, one of the first things I do is I look at the walls, I look at the paintings, and I look to see if there's something that I can bring in that initial conversation to form a common bond. Now, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes that member of staff or the member of Congress, they're in a rush. They don't have time for small talk. And so you always want to feel it out and trust your instincts. But it's always important to establish connection that's based on that common interest. That could be both personal, it could also be professional. You want to ensure that your ask in a meeting is clear and concise. There's nothing, and I'll give you the staffer perspective. There's nothing worse than listening to a lobbyist and not knowing what they want at the end of our conversation. It's almost a guarantee that no action will be taken from me going to my boss. Because if they can't convince me, chances are they're not going to be able to convince my boss. And so you want to be clear and concise in your ask. Establishing the need, what I want to say to that in particular is you want to compel the action. You want to do what the law intends to do. And so you need to explain to the member why their action is needed now. You need to explain to the staffer why that action is needed now. That can be based on anecdotal evidence or data. But every campaign is going to look a little different in that. And if the need is not there immediately, then be honest. In fact, be honest with everything. If asked a question and you don't know the answer, say you don't know and you'll follow up accordingly. At the end of the day, people realize that we can't know everything. And so accept this and integrate it into your professional process accordingly. Tailoring the interest to the buyer. This is more of a sales term. But at the end of the day, lobbying is sales. You're selling an idea and you're selling yourself in the process of selling that idea. And so when it comes to members of the House, for example, you'll look to tailor that ask to the needs of the constituency that the representative represents, or to the needs of the community that they live in. That could look different for every single member, and it takes a little bit of time. It could also be elevated to the interest of the party, a political aspect of it. So again, this is an area where advocates can become creative and use their best judgment. And I encourage you all, as advocates at all levels, trust your instincts on that, but do the research. Follow up and follow through. I know Jim touched on a little bit on the etiquette there. If you don't follow up, it's as if you never asked in the first place. And something I like to say is that a great lobbyist never takes no for an answer. Now, there's a caveat to that, because you don't want to annoy the person you're dealing with, because then they'll ghost you and they won't work with you. And again, it's all about the people. And so again, use your best judgment, trust your instincts, follow up, follow through. Be intentional just means don't waste people's time. If you feel as if they're, again, open to that small talk, make that small talk. But at the end of the day, if as an advocate, you see yourself as working for the staffer, as working for the member, as serving them and their needs rather than your own, you'll be more successful 9 times out of 10, if not 100% of the time. And something I want to communicate is don't partner just for the sake of partnership, okay? Because you may go down a road where you're investing time into something that doesn't actually bring you any further into the process. ROA is unafraid to take positions that may not be in alignment with the rest of the community. And if you know for a fact that something you're doing, you believe in and is right, the community won't support, don't let that deter you, but also don't waste your time partnering. It's okay to ask for industry feedback. It's okay to try to improve your own campaigns from that feedback. But again, your time is important, especially if you're managing a large portfolio. And so invest your time wisely. Next slide, please. We've talked about the people, we've talked about the process, we've talked about policy. Partnership is an important piece of this equation. And I love in particular the picture that's on the left there from outside of the building. Last February, ROA proudly hosted the Military Coalition, which is ROA's primary vehicle for collaboration and partnership with the organizations in the MSO and the VSO community. And we're really proud of the responsibility that we've taken on within the coalition. I'd make the case that no organization absorbs more operational responsibility than ROA within the Military Coalition. But again, you also want to make sure that investing the time in those partnerships doesn't take away from your campaigns on the Hill. And so be intentional, make clear and concise asks, not just of your stakeholders, but also of your mission partners, and you'll form meaningful partnerships. Next slide, please. The reason I put this slide in is because the way in which you develop your relationships with your members of staff and your members of Congress on the Hill, you'll look to actually make it the same way with your partners because you don't want to string them along. You don't want to waste their time. You want to embody and encompass all of these different things. Because again, the name of the game is relationships, and partnerships
we did move
are a
the
good
slide.
means of facilitating that. Next
Cameron,
slide.
next slide.
We actually did. He had it in there twice.
All right.
And that, again, be intentional. That was intentional. So Cameron, I'm going to ask if you wouldn't mind just going to the ROA.org website for a moment. I want to take a little bit of time to walk everybody through some of the really amazing updates that we've made to the advocacy tab on the website, many of which have been in the last 48 hours. And then also kind of walk you all through from a grassroots and a grass tops perspective, our government affairs readiness resources. And starting off at ROA.org works perfect. Yeah.
All right, we'll go home.
Okay. So if you wouldn't mind starting off with the public policy portfolio subtab. So hover over advocacy and then policy portfolio. So you may have seen this tab on the website formerly called Legislative Agenda. I personally prefer the word portfolio because I think there's nothing worse than somebody coming into a meeting with an agenda. And so it's a much softer touch, but it makes a huge psychological difference with the way in which you're interacting with your partners in that meeting. It's always easier to say, this is a part of my portfolio rather than this is on my agenda. And so if you wouldn't mind scrolling down, what you'll see is that we have broken our priorities on a session by session basis, starting with the 118th Congress. And so I'm proud to announce that our theme for the second session of the 118th Congress, which started, just a couple of weeks ago, is all about the word transition, transitioning American military superiority into the decisive decade. There's a hyperlink right there. If you wouldn't mind clicking that, Cameron. So that'll just bring you to a 2-pager that really simply outlines what those priorities are. My recommendation to you is all the materials I'm going to walk you through, print them out, put them in a folder, and all together, that's going to be your public policy portfolio. So just a little bit there. Please go back to the last tab, please. And keep scrolling down. We also have one for the White House's Joining Forces Initiative, focused on caring for the families of service members and veterans, caregivers, and survivors. There's a link that's below there that provides you with a 3-pager that breaks it down into a little bit more detail. And then underneath that is from our first session of Congress.
Where is that document? The
Keep scrolling down. You see where it says read more here?
Ah, gotcha. Right there. Okay, got it.
Keep scrolling down, please, Cameron. It's the same thing for there. Now, the annual statement we're expecting to have completed for the second session in the beginning of March. And so be on the lookout for that. We'll make an announcement of that. But the annual statement is essentially going to provide you as advocates with so many of the arrows in your quiver for support at the grassroots and grass tops level. So ROA, just this year was proud to unveil a brand new resource, the interactive position paper. This is a premier government affairs readiness resource equipped with a QR code that will provide you with essentially live footage of ROA's advocacy in Washington, D.C. on certain issues through our up to the Minuteman legislative updates. They have a QR code in the header that you'll see right there. In addition to having all the information that you'll need for a meeting. I know that I have been humbled by high praise from those who say I give my briefings without notes, but please don't be fooled. I always take notes with me to my meetings, and those notes are going to come from these position papers, and we've done the work at National for you. All you need to do is print that out, become a subject matter expert in what's on the paper, and bring it with you to a meeting with your elected officials. So that's the interactive position paper. We also have, You know, it's a premier product, but it's a step down, tier 2, if you will, just our standard position papers. And so, Cameron, I'm actually going to ask you for this to click on a specific one, because I
Okay.
want to show how this all comes together.
Which one?
So if you wouldn't mind clicking on improving service earned benefits, delivering, yep. And then go back to that tab.
Okay, go back to this tab.
Yep. And then click below that, the section by section summary.
Okay.
So I mentioned that a bill starts with an idea. And Jim talked about how, you know, legislators and their staff and legislative services, they'll draft bills. But at ROA, we also at National, we draft bills too. And so this is an example of a bill that we've drafted, and this is a section by section summary of that bill. It does a lot. More information again on the website. You can view it at your own convenience. But what we have is the position paper. We have the section by section summary of the bill. And then Cameron, if you wouldn't mind going back, I know we're doing a lot here. We're opening a lot of tabs.
Don't remember which one it was.
It's going to be the one that says Legis. Yeah, right next to that.
There we go.
To the, yeah, so go to the left too.
I don't think
Your
so.
other left,
Yeah,
Okay, yes.
yeah.
right there.
Scroll down. And then we've also provided those draft bills as well as archive from former Congresses, so on and so forth. So that's the portfolio page. Again, take all of those documents, print them out, put it in a folder, and you've got your own personal policy portfolio for federal advocacy. And again, so that's just an example of a bill that we've drafted. And again, the Congress can do whatever it wants with it, but we do most of the work here. I want to be conscientious of time because I know it's late. We've made updates to every single tab on the website. These on the policy portfolio tab are some of your premier grass tops resources for use in meetings that you will schedule with your federally elected officials. The last thing I want to show, Cameron, is just the call to action page. But we actually changed the hyperlink to that tonight, so I gotta update that.
Yeah.
So
I
if you
have
wouldn't
to go
mind,
back.
yeah, going back to the website.
Yeah, I have to go back to the website. Hold on. Okay.
And then go to the Legislative Readiness Center. So the Legislative Readiness Center is just a simple rebranding of our call to action page. And right now it's equipped with up-to-date, ready-to-go advocacy campaigns for your engagement and support. There are 9 right now. The way this works is this is our provided to you, grassroots tool. So when there's something that we need to push out, we'll let you know that we need your engagement. Visit the Action Center. Here's the link right to your member of Congress and their staff. And this is the tool through which we achieve our grassroots support. And so the way it works is you can only write your members of Congress one time per campaign. And so each one has a little bit of an issue background. If there are video and news opportunities that we want to share to you, we'll include those in the campaign. And then each one has a pre-authored letter that was written over here at National for you to send, again, to your elected officials. And the way it's written is from you as a constituent. Some may include an ROA reference if we've got a link that we want to link them to on the website, so on and so forth. But this is all for your engagement. This is your tool provided to you by National. And so that is my presentation to you. regarding ways in which you as an ROA member can engage with our readiness resources and your elected officials and their staff from a grassroots and grass tops perspective. This can be done alone, or this can be done in tandem with the partners that you formed at the state level, as highlighted from Jim's presentation. But whether it's a state campaign or a federal campaign, I ask respectfully, please contact me. Let's talk about it, and let's make sure we're not working at cross purposes. Thank you very much, everyone. That's my presentation.
Hey,
All
thanks,
right.
Matt.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We are over time here, but we've had some great information. And if you can stay, we would love to have some final comments here. I'm going to go to Scott Russell first, our chair, to talk about Yellow Ribbon and communication.
I won't take up too much time. Just basically, we brought back the ROA Academy. The Department of Chapter Development Committee wanted to see that happen. So we plan on doing quarterly events. If we're at the annual meeting, we'll do it in person. Otherwise, we're going to do virtual training events. So if you have ideas, if you like this format, if you like what we're doing, and there's some ideas you want to see us talk about, please let myself know, let Cameron know, and we'll just kind of rack and stack and knock out some of these. Probably we might, next quarter, are we looking at doing Yellow Ribbon, Cameron? So Yellow Ribbon is really taking off. We've had Air Force events. I think we've missed one Air Force event, but we've hit about 5 or 6. We're opening up and doing Army events. If you want to know what's going on in your area, just look up at the Yellow Ribbon site, and off the top of my head, Yellow Ribbon. If you do a search for Yellow Ribbon, it'll pop up, and I can't think if it's a .mil or .gov. Sorry, but it's right there, and you can do a search and find out what's going on in your local area. Like I said, Army does a lot of smaller events by unit. Air Force does major events, East Coast, West Coast. They've got about 800 per event. Armies are about 300, 500. Navy's still doing virtual. So I don't know how we get into a virtual event. So that's just a primer. If you're interested, I've got a process down. So if you're interested in doing one and you need help, let me know and we'll set it up. But again, I think this ROA Academy stuff is going to go well. So if you have ideas on what you want us to do, let us know. That's all I got.
And we will wrap up with you, Trey. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thanks, Scott. First, I'd like to thank all of the participants, Jim, Cameron, for you and Karen putting it on, Scott for your leadership, and Matt. This is actually better than what I'd even imagine. I expect this to to continue the snowball, and this is going to be a great thing. It's a couple of updates I just want to let everyone know. Matt, I, and Kaylin has been doing we've been deep diving into our website. Just to let you know, the website is going to be tabled to calendar year 25 as far as changing everything around. It's a budget constraints, but what we decided to do, Matt has done a great job as far as reorganizing the pages. And we're going through whether it'll be directly or indirectly that notice some of the changes that we're doing, trying to make sure that information is streamlined so you can have it to action it. We're doing things with the Law Center. Sam is doing a great job keeping Kaylin up together. We have a format for that. So that for the website, some things I still want to do, but it's going to be tabled to the next calendar year. But in the meantime, we will continue to make strides to make this a better website for all the members in the association. The second item I have in regard to, it was an email. It was a request inquiry about taxes. Just to put a quick note on that, I know Tom is going to send a correspondence out to all the departments and chapters in regards to how to do the taxes for the new upcoming year. So stay tuned for that. I know he's working on it. He's been having dialogues with some of the members that's on various departments and chapter leadership positions. So so stay tuned. He's going to send it out, to kind of answer that question. And last but not least, again, Cameron, I know you was traveling. I really appreciate you and Karen's leadership of putting this on. This is awesome. And once, probably give me probably the Monday or Tuesday next week, we're gonna have a video online. So we'll have that uploaded. There's a couple of things we plan to do with that. Um, and if anyone have any questions, please, ask them in a chat. That way we can capture them, or you can reach out to the leadership, Scott, Karen, or Cameron. As far as that way, we can make sure that any questions that people probably have, be able to digest. That we can get it farmed out to Jim or Matt, because that the presentation was awesome, and I expect for us to build on this. This is it was a knockout of the park grand slam. And Cameron, I turn it back over to you, the gracious host.
Great. Thank you so much to all of our speakers and all of our participants. We appreciate you, and ROA is very special to me, and obviously ROA is special to you, or else you would not be here, because you're here to advocate for those that are very important to us and working on ROA's mission. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and have a wonderful evening until next time.
Thank you, Cameron. Awesome. Bye-bye, everyone.
Night all.
Night, everyone.